when I put in broken picker in Google, it's like it's all over the place. And it's actually there's a broken picker syndrome. Who knew? Thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. Welcoming back Sandy Weiner, the dating coach, founder of Last First Date, and the author of Choice Points in Dating. Sandy, thank you so much for joining us again.
It's a pleasure to be back, Selka.
Today's topic is interesting. I know you've talked about a broken picker before. You did a video on it. And when I put in broken picker in Google, it's like it's all over the place. And it's actually there's a broken picker syndrome. Who knew? What is a broken picker? Let's talk about that before we get started.
It's when you choose the wrong partners, you have no idea why. You keep getting your heart broken, you're blindsided, and it can be tricky because people may look different on the outside, but there are similarities between the people you pick, and we don't always see it.
Well, you said here that's the number one reason or a big reason that people hire you. Broken picker syndrome. Well, let's talk about exactly how to identify if you have a broken picker. You give 5 reasons why you have a broken picker. Let's see if our audience can identify with any of these. Number 1, you say lack of self-awareness.
Yeah, when we don't realize that we're picking the wrong partners, even your friends may say to you, hey, this person isn't good for you. You go, they're great. Like you're wrong. You have no idea. And then bam, another one bites the dust.
Right. And people, maybe that's why it's called self-awareness. You're not aware that you're doing this. I guess unless you recognize the pattern, or like you said, a friend points it out to you, it'll just keep on going and going. Number 2 here, unresolved emotional issues like past traumas that influence your relationship choices.
There's a real clear line, which I never saw until I was doing this work and realized it about myself. But there's a straight line between our trauma, our past issues, even the way we were brought up, that leads us to make the choices that we make. And if we haven't resolved these issues, we keep picking the same partners over and over. We pick partners who are not a good fit. So for example, if you grew up in a home where your needs were not met in some way, where let's say there was a lot of criticism, you unconsciously choose partners who criticize you, hoping that somehow you're going to repair the relationship you had with that parent. It's unconscious. We have no idea usually. And until you work with someone like a coach or a therapist to help you see it, you don't realize that you're doing this.
I always thought that was so interesting. If I look back, there are several men that had absolutely have my father's qualities. And so, I want our audience to think about that. Unless you have that self-awareness, you may not know you're doing this, but if you really look at the people you're attracted to, is that a pattern with you?
People will say, oh, I didn't realize I was dating my mother or I was dating my father. I mean, I have a client who said she had this pattern going on for years. And then she said, oh, the last person helped me see that I dated my mother, who was a narcissist. So, those people are charming and they have so many qualities that you're drawn to, but it can't work.
Well, the other thing about trauma that I've learned is that it doesn't have to be something tragic. Little things can be traumatic and carry through to our adult choices. So a lot of awareness to be gained there, if you keep choosing the wrong people over and over.
Yeah, and I'd like to share a little example of that in case our audience doesn't know what you're talking about, because we call this little t trauma. There's big T and little t. The big T is like a parent dies, parents got divorced when you were tiny and your parent married this horrible step parent, or there was, rape or something awful that happened in your past. But the smaller traumas are things like you grew up moving a lot. That deeply affects how you attach to people. Maybe you're afraid to get too involved with anyone because you think you remember the moving part, that you can't stay too long. So don't get too attached. These all have significant impact on who we choose as partners. And so connecting those dots is just so, so crucial to choosing better partners.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned how you attach. The whole attachment theory concept was again a revelation to me. And I know a lot of people watching, we've done numerous videos on it, and I'll link to those. Number 3 here, societal expectations. This is so interesting too, that the pressures, the expectations of your family or your cultural norms put on you for choosing a partner.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a religious family that put so much pressure on marrying young and starting a family in your 20s. It didn't really matter whether you're in love with this person. You just keep dating. You keep dating because you feel like as a non-matchable, unmatchable person because you're not married at 28, that you feel like you're really old. In different cultures, this is true, that we have so much pressure to just be partnered, and we don't learn what compatibility really means.
When it comes to you like the societal expectations or family expectations, what also happens, I think, and I'm asking you, is that it can often prevent you from choosing somebody you truly love because it's not, that wouldn't be approved, that wouldn't be accepted.
Our generation, I mean, people who were our parents had no idea what healthy relationships look like for the most part. So, what was love? I
Mhm.
don't think that they really understood how to guide us into a love relationship. You look at the culture, the Indian culture, that doesn't always believe that you should have a love match, that you can grow into a love match. So, for some people it worked, and for a lot of people it doesn't. But for the most part, if you don't even know what your attraction factors are or what compatibility looks like, you can't really grow a relationship. So the societal pressure is real, and a lot of people just jump into partnership. I mean, I had a friend whose daughter got married to somebody who was really pretty toxic because she was one of the last people who was unmarried and she felt like a pariah. So she would rather be married and even divorced better than being never married.
That again is such an interesting point, and we've done videos on that too. That is it more of a red flag if you're divorced or if you've never been married? And most people agree it's never been married. That's like
Yeah.
how can you not be married by 50? Something must really be wrong with you. I'd like to hear from our audience how what you think about when you hear us say that. Did you choose relationships because of that, or is that still entering your decision when you meet people? Then 4, poor communication skills. That ineffective communication, as you say, can result in misunderstandings and misinterpretations that cause you to choose the wrong partner.
Yeah, I've seen so many people who are afraid to bring stuff up early on, afraid to say their feelings are hurt, afraid to find out what kind of relationship this person is looking for, afraid to say, I would like an exclusive relationship, afraid to ask for exclusivity before sex. I mean, there's so
Mhm.
many things that happen when you don't communicate effectively that
Mhm.
can lead to choosing partners who are absolutely on a different page, who don't want what you want, who are not what you're looking for, but you're afraid to ask and you're afraid to bring stuff up. So, learning how to communicate effectively is so important.
Yeah, and I suppose asking the right questions too, and it's that fine line also between maybe coming on too strong or being too nosy that turns people off. And then, like you said, just not even asking at all. You're hesitant to come off as perhaps being, coming on too strong or being nosy. I know women especially find that difficult. I know I did. So
Yeah.
again, it'd be interesting to hear what our viewers have to say about this.
Yeah, it's that fear of being needy and it feels weak. And
Yeah.
asking for what you want feels like so out of everybody's comfort zone. It's really important to learn these skills, and most of us don't have them. It's not, if you feel like, oh my God, I have trouble with that, you're not
Mhm.
alone. It is so common. And the good news is that these are skills you can learn.
Do you think men have that as much as women do? I know I just said women especially have that issue. What do you find from men?
I think men are trained or raised to be a lot more straightforward. They don't
Mm-hmm.
overthink as much as we do. But there are a lot of men who struggle to really state their needs because they were not raised to state their needs. They were
Mm-hmm.
raised to state ideas and thoughts and be heard at the table, but not necessarily in a relationship.
Great point. Great point. Then finally, here, fear of being alone. That the fear of being alone or societal pressure to be in a relationship can result in setting that pattern of choosing the wrong people, the fear of being alone.
Yeah, a lot of people are not comfortable being alone and they just want to be partnered all the time. And so what happens is you jump from relationship to relationship. You never know what it is to just be with your own company. And so we keep jumping and jumping, and then you have no space to reflect if
Mm-hmm.
you're jumping from relationship to relationship. So it's good to be alone. It's really good to be alone and take time to
Mm-hmm.
assess what was going on in your relationship history so that you can do better.
I know I kind of jumped from relationship to relationship, from my first marriage directly into my second, and then I did take that break. I did take
Mm.
that break before Paul and I met, and I think that made all the difference in the world. So, okay, so maybe one of these points we can identify with, or even or all of them for that matter. What do we do about it? How do we break the cycle?
First, identify the cycle, right? That's the most important thing, is be aware that you have a pattern. Then it's important to figure out what it is that you actually do need in a partner. So knowing your must-have list, and we've talked about this before, but being mindful of those qualities so you don't overlook them. These are like the top five, and they could be generosity of spirit, self-awareness, growth mindset, a good communicator, the things that absolutely you cannot live without.
And as list goes, and you've already made that clear, it's really the big things. It's not, how tall somebody is, or how much money they make, or blah 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 blah. And here it's as number two that you have here is the opposite, the deal breakers. What absolutely will be a deal breaker?
Yeah, these are the things that they show up early on usually, and we tend to dismiss them or ignore them. And it is that one thing that makes every good quality in a person null and void.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people go, what are you talking about? It really doesn't take more than one. So somebody was controlling behaviors. They may have a great personality. They may be constantly learning and growing, but they're trying to control you. Somebody who's not on a path of personal growth, or somebody who's got a lot of anger and victim mentality, somebody who just dumps their traumas and identifies with trauma
Mm-hmm.
constantly. And, I am this way because of my past, and never really is working on it. And especially if you have an insecure attachment style, if you feel anxious around new partners, you may be wanting to be liked so much that you're ignoring these red flags. So if something shows up early on, ask questions, get curious, ask follow-up questions, and see if it's a true red flag, because if it is, it's time to walk away.
And that was point three, by the way. I'll put up a graphic for that. Do you have insecure attachment? Again, to me, it's a fascinating subject. What an insecure attachment style will prompt you to do. And incidentally, I absolutely have an insecure attachment style. I learned that, and I've learned so much since I've identified that. That you
Yeah.
have here in closing, Sandy, before we end, you have create a life you love. But what exactly do you mean by that? What is the actionable step
It
here?
means, yeah, fall in love with your own life before you fall in love with
Mm,
somebody else. So if
okay.
there's things that you're not doing right now, like hobbies or volunteer work, something that makes you happy, take yourself on the dates that you would like to go out with somebody else on, go to dinner by yourself, which is scary for a lot of people, but it's a great way to have courage and meet new people. Travel alone, like do things that, like, instead of waiting for somebody to show up in your life and putting your life on hold for somebody, fill your life up. And that whole thing about somebody's going to complete you is total BS. You complete you, you show up as an independent individual, and you're more likely to have a healthier relationship.
Absolutely. And then finally, match their energy. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, a lot of people with broken pickers and people who fall for people too quickly, they tend to ignore the fact that somebody's not as invested as they are in them.
Mhm.
So that shows up in they take 3 days to text you back, or they don't make another date, and then you're like, "Hey, how's it going?" And then they're like, "Oh, okay, I'll make another date." Like you're doing so much work, and you want to know, like, you want to feel like it's equal, like you're
Mhm.
both invested in getting to know each other, especially when how you feel, not just when you're together, but when you're apart. That is
Mhm.
one of the most important things. When you're apart, are you feeling anxious? Are you feeling like fearful that they have been dating other people and haven't told you? These are all signs that your energies are not matching. And so
Mhm.
you want to lean back a little bit, see if somebody is coming forward before you overinvest.
I think the whole breadcrumbing falls into that category. That's a
Yeah.
huge trending term now too. If you recently did a video as well, is that just giving you a little bit to keep you interested, but not enough to actually go forward. So, Sandy, these are some great points, some great advice. Is there anything that we didn't discuss? Anything I didn't ask that you'd like to add?
I mean, this is a big topic. Obviously,
Yeah.
it takes a lot more work than a short video. If anything resonates for anybody, please reach out. I have so many ways that I can help. I have a program coming up in the end of April that is for anybody who wants an intensive group experience, and that will be in the show notes. You don't have to do this alone, and it is really hard to do it alone. It's hard to notice these patterns alone, let alone heal them. And so I just want to just put that message out there that time is ticking. Your life can change drastically for the better if you really start to heal these particular areas.
Sandy, thank you. I always appreciate your time. And as you said, all the information will be in the show notes. Always check the show notes. Sandy always has something going in terms of workshops. So, do pay attention to that. Your books, of course, we have Choice Points in Dating and Love at Last. It's a real inspiration that it is possible to find love after 50. And Sandy, I look forward to our next conversation on Second Act TV.